Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking on something pretty different. We're exploring how to navigate a world that, well, according to our source, is basically shifting under our feet. We're diving into a concept the source actually calls Wooology. Yeah, so this deep dive, it's based on a particular YouTube source from the Clif High Sci-Fi World channel. And the speaker there introduces these ideas, this woo concept, which we'll get into, and some honestly pretty unconventional methods, but methods they present as practical, for understanding a reality that seems to be changing incredibly fast.
Exactly. And our mission here, for you listening, is really to unpack what the speaker means by these terms. We're looking at woodology, yes, but also things like methodology and what the source frames as actual survival skills. Skills for processing really complex stuff, some really out there ideas about physics, reality itself. And, it's important to say we're not here to endorse this viewpoint. The goal is just to understand it, to see the perspective being presented. We want to give you the tools, maybe, to think about things differently, especially when the usual explanations don't seem to fit anymore.
Okay, so let's jump right in. This central term, woodology. How does the source actually define it? Well, it's pretty straightforward, the study of the woo. But the interesting part is it's not meant dismissively. It's presented as a serious, methodical way to understand things outside the usual accepted stuff.
Right. And the source makes a really specific point about language here. You know how people say they'll study a methodology? The source points out that's kind of redundant. A methodology is the study of a method. It's not the method itself.
Ah, okay. Like etymology is the study of words. Epistemology is the study of existence.
Exactly. So woology fixed that pattern. It's the methodical study of what the source just calls the woo.
So what's the purpose then? Why study the woo?
Well, this is where it gets intense. The source presents it with real urgency. It's not just thinking for thinking's sake. It's framed as a survival skill for dealing with what the source calls a fog of war. The idea is that the old story, the old narrative is falling apart, collapsing, it says, under maybe 150, 160 years of corruption. The system's crumbling, and the source claims globalists are attacking, profiting from it all.
Wow, okay, that's a heavy context. And the source uses this really striking analogy, doesn't it? Something about waking up to zombies and space aliens.
Yeah, both at the same time. It's designed to shock you into understanding how disruptive the shift is supposed to be. Like all the rules you thought you knew for survival, gone, shattered overnight.
It definitely sets an urgent tone. It explains why these thinking methods are positioned as so vital right now, according to this view. So, okay, if that's the situation, what tools does this wookology offer? The first one mentioned is first principles thinking. And the source gives it a specific origin story, linking it back to the U.S. Army's War College in the 60s.
Yeah, apparently to help generals cut through confusing reports from the battlefield. They called it the obfuscation dilemma. How do you decide when you have conflicting information, maybe deliberate disinformation?
So how does it work, practically?
It's about making decisions fast, even when you're swimming in unknowns. A key part is categorizing things you know are unknown. The source has this kind of visceral example. Something bit me in the ass, right? That part's known. Even if you have no idea what bit you, that's the known unknown. You box the pain, acknowledge it, and work from there.
Okay, I see. It's about finding solid ground, even if it's just a tiny patch in a sea of uncertainty. And the second tool, it complements this.
Right, it's called retroduction. The source describes it as a way to, open a hole in your thinking. You take a new idea, maybe a weird one, and you see how it bumps up against your first principles, those things you know. Then you consciously decide, accept the new idea, partially, or just toss it out.
So it's about being flexible, willing to reevaluate constantly, stripping away assumptions.
Exactly that. It's iterative. You're always refining. And the source actually connects this whole process, constantly examining your own thoughts, to practices like Vipassanā or Zen meditation, suggesting they're also about diving deep into the methodology of your own thinking, your own existence.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But the source also points out this isn't easy for people, right? This adapting to a new reality.
No, definitely not. It uses this analogy of fast twitch versus slow twitch responses. Basically, how quickly can someone integrate information that completely shatters their existing worldview?
Yeah, I can imagine that's tough.
For many, the source suggests it's incredibly hard to just throw out decades of learning. It leads to resistance, or just people being slow to accept what the source presents as new facts, new truths.
So how does the source suggest dealing with that? Especially for those who might be more slow twitch.
It seems less about forcing it and more about exposure and just being willing to engage with the ideas. It's presented as a natural human thing, this resistance. The emphasis is more on, like, acclimatizing yourself, which we can talk more about.
Okay, so with these tools, first principles, retroduction, this willingness to test ideas, even on flimsy evidence, what happens when you apply this Wooology to the really strange stuff out there? The source says as the old paradigm collapses, things previously dismissed as woo start emerging. Like what?
Yeah, things like claims about giants existing or the true history of Earth being different or hidden catastrophes in our past, stuff that was pushed to the fringes.
Okay, but that sounds like a minefield. How do you look at that kind of information without getting lost or misled?
Good question. The source uses the standard who, what, when, where, why framework, but adds a layer it calls paranoia, which sounds negative, but here means extreme caution. You examine the source, the who, their background, their potential motives. You look hard at the what, the content itself, and the context when, where, why was this released. Always looking for potential disinformation, potential dangers.
It sounds like risk assessment. The source uses an analogy about approaching a door, right?
Exactly. Before you even open up the door, examine the frame. Check underneath, any smells, any heat. It's about gathering data before you commit, before you even step inside, reducing risk.
And this connects to the idea of acclimatizing.
Yes. Acclimatizing yourself to the woo in the woo way, like letting your eyes adjust to the dark. It implies patience, being thorough. Don't just jump in. Let your understanding adapt slowly before you proceed deeper into the woo.
Okay. And within this woo space, the source says it's okay, even appropriate, to connect dots based on, well, not much evidence initially.
Kind of. It says make connections even on flimsy evidence just to see if more becomes instantly apparent. It sounds like an experimental approach. Build a quick model, test it, see if it reveals anything immediately. Don't wait for perfect proof if you're just exploring patterns.
Right, rapidly building and testing woo models. Okay, so let's get specific. What are some of these bizarre outliers the source tackles with this approach? It mentions seeing videos, right?
Yeah.
People collapsing near their phones.
Yeah, 2 instances the speaker saw, described as extremely bizarre outliers. But importantly, also potentially a pinpoint of a developing wedge of a trend. It's taking these weird, isolated events and asking, could this be the start of something bigger?
And how does the source even begin to explain something like that?
Well, this is where it draws on ideas from Michael Linton's work, apparently, talking about complex energetic softwares in the body, a multiple energetic body model, these subtle energy fields or micromorphic fields. And the source suggests these fields could be interfered with, especially if the person has been augmented with some kind of a chemical through one of these injecticides, as the source puts it.
Injecticides.
Okay.
That's providing a potential mechanism within this unconventional framework. And then there's this really deep historical dive the source makes, connecting to Tesla.
Right, Nikola Tesla. Apparently, he spent time in the Vatican Library as a kid. His dad worked there. And his favorite book, the one he was photographed with, was Boscovich's Theory of Natural Philosophy. And Boscovich wasn't just anyone. He was head of the Jesuit order, with access to all the Vatican's archives, which, the source implies, held a lot of suppressed history.
Okay, so what were Boscovich's ideas, according to the source? How do they connect?
The source presents Boscovich's core idea as all particles, everything in reality, carry dynamic electrical fields. They're constantly interacting. This ties into the source's own Wubble principles about cycles of creative destruction. And this leads to a really wild idea, interfering with what the source says the U.S. Navy patents call the refresh rate of reality.
The refresh rate of reality.
Yeah.
Like reality is constantly being updated or rendered.
Sort of, yeah. The fundamental energetic process that sustains everything.
So, connecting back to the collapsing people videos.
The theory the source puts forward is that maybe they were zapped via their phones, that this zap interfered with those micromorphogenic fields on their cells, maybe disrupted the heart's electrical signals, precisely during a refresh of their body's energy state, causing a heart attack.
Wow, okay. That is definitely applying the Wooology framework.
Yeah.
What about Tic-Tac UFOs? Another example.
Yes, a big one. The source argues they don't use propulsion as we know it, no atoms, no gravity manipulation in the usual sense. It's magnetism at a very, very deep level. And it points to observable things pilots reported, that weird oscillation when they stop suddenly, or how they rotate belly first towards where they're about to go.
So how would magnetism explain that movement? What's the theory there?
The source suggests they basically harden themselves magnetically, creating an isolated field around them. Then they throw a reverse magnetic field out into the environment, which pushes them. This would explain, the source claims, why there's no sonic boom, no disturbance of the air or water around them. It's propulsionless, conventionally speaking.
Because they're changing their state relative to this underlying refresh rate of reality.
That's the idea presented, changing their relationship to the fabric of reality itself, mediated by magnetism. The source also mentions similar magnetic effects reported in underwater USO encounters.
This is a lot of really out there material presented as connected. Does the source link this back to current events or trends?
It does. It mentions what it calls alarming developing trends. Specifically, a perceived decline in mental abilities and capacity among people the source terms injected. And it cites figures, supposedly from insurance companies and funeral homes, showing huge jumps in mortality rates, like 87% up in 2021 over 2020, and maybe 100% up expected in 2022. These are presented as real-world signs that the old paradigm is collapsing, with tangible negative consequences.
So tying it all together then, the mission of Wooology, according to the source, is what exactly?
It's about building these woo models, these alternative explanations, and testing them against reality now, not waiting for official science or government to catch up or approve, because, as the source puts it quite bluntly, the paradigm has sunk further than the submarine. The old way is already gone, in this view.
It suggests the time for waiting is over.
Pretty much. And that we're in a period of intensifying change. The source notes that the defenders of the old ways are getting, defensive, that their narrative is crumbling.
Okay. And to wrap up, the source leaves us with one more provocative thought related to religion.
Yeah, it observes what it calls a rise of the religion feeling, manifesting in many existing religious structures. But then it makes a specific forecast, a fading of this religion emotion linked to Islam, which the source predicts will cause major consequences, like governments falling due to the resulting chaos.
So it really extends this idea of a collapsing paradigm right into global geopolitics and belief systems. Definitely something to think about. Regardless of whether you accept the source's framework or not, it challenges you to consider how deep these shifts might really go.